on, guys? We're back here again, bringing you a new type of episode, I want to call it. Fantasy football type. We're going to give you startums and situms throughout the week and who we think you should start
for week one.
Yeah, for week one. We're going to start with Buck. Who's your first start?
Yeah, so my first start is Ben Roethlisberger at Cleveland. Ben Roethlisberger has always destroyed the Cleveland Browns, and I don't see any difference this year. He's also got Martavis Bryant back, and he still has Antonio Brown as well. I mean, they did they traded Sammy Coates, but they still got some guys there who would be good even at the slot position. And they got new tight end Vance McDonald. I don't see the Browns' defense or secondary stepping up in any way to stop Ben Roethlisberger. I think he's a big start and can get you at least 20 points this week.
All right, James, who's your first start?
My first start is actually a rookie on the Minnesota Vikings, Dalvin Cook. He's home versus the New Orleans Saints. And the Saints, we all know their defense is very bad. I mean, Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman tore him up twice last year. And the biggest thing for me, he may not get, with Sheldon Rankins, him finally being healthy, he may not get a lot of rushing yards. But the big thing is their linebackers. They have guys like Manti Te'o and Alex Okafor. They're not cover linebackers. So if he gets matched up on one of these guys on like a screen or a wheel route or something like that, he's a very high potential for at least 20 points. So I like him.
My start actually goes off of what Buck said. I have Martavis Bryant as a start this week. He's coming back. He hasn't played in a year. I think that he's going to show his first game. He wants to show what he can do, show that he's meant to be the Steelers' number 2 wide receiver. I have him as a high of like 17 points, probably about a low of like 14, but he's going to be somewhere in between there.
He won that Twitter battle between him and Sammy Coates.
Yeah, Sammy Coates is gone now. So,
Yeah.
moving on, we'll go to Buck. What's your next start?
Yeah, my next start is Andy Dalton versus Baltimore. The Baltimore secondary is good, but Andy Dalton's got a really good offense now with John Ross, Brandon LaFell, and A.J. Green. And he's also got a solid run game, which won't help his points, but it'll help him play better as a quarterback. Baltimore, they've got a good defense, but I see them being shaky here. The Baltimore Ravens are the away team, so Andy Dalton is at home. I have him getting a big week against that Baltimore secondary. Again, just the matchup itself at home, division rival. Andy Dalton's always been great in first week games. So I got Andy Dalton winning the game for the Bengals and doing good in fantasy.
All right, James.
I kind of have an odd one here. It's Jonathan Stewart at the 49ers. And when you look at it at first, you're like, well, why would you want him? They have Christian McCaffrey. But after looking into it, Jonathan Stewart's going to get most of the running carries while McCaffrey will get the receiving ones. And honestly, with the addition of McCaffrey, I feel like, on the goal line, if they put them both out there, people expect like a little dump out to McCaffrey, and I feel like Jonathan Stewart could really be like a vulture this year. And honestly, I see a couple goal line TDs for him week one.
All right. Well, moving on from there, my next one is going to be Deshaun Jackson, another guy who I believe he's now on a new team this year with Jameis Winston, who knows how to throw the ball deep. He didn't have that, he had that at Washington, but Kirk Cousins wasn't the best at throwing them, whereas I believe Jameis Winston will do better. I believe week one he'll try to showcase that, and it'll give him at least 2 to 3 chances for it, and I think he will catch one. I think he's going to be at a high point of like 15 points. All right. Going on from there, we'll go back to Buck.
I had to throw this guy in here. He's my boy, Robby Anderson. Now, he's the number 1 wide receiver currently on the New York Jets. And Josh McCown's got a heck of an arm. And I just think that the Bills don't really have a number 1 corner now. They got E.J. Gaines, but as a deep threat in Robby Anderson, we saw that connection they had in week 1 of the preseason where Josh McCown threw deep to Robby Anderson. Against, I forget the team they played week 1 in the preseason, but Robby Anderson, it was the Titans, that's who it was. Robby Anderson, he's a great deep threat. I have him having like a touchdown, maybe 100 receiving yards in week 1 versus the Bills, who don't have a great secondary. Robby Anderson's a great deep threat.
All right, James.
Well, mine actually goes against what Buck just said. I have the Bills' defense as a start on this week. I mean, the Jets' offense will probably be one of the bottom 3 in the league, and the Bills do have a solid defense. Yes, their secondary isn't great, but they have a lot of great pass rushers in there. I could see 5+ sacks and maybe a forced fumble, maybe a touchdown in there. So Bills defense is a great start.
So all 3 of us are going from the same game. I got Zay Jones as my start. If they start Nathan Peterman week 1, I think Zay Jones becomes even that much better.
Bigger production.
Yeah, Nathan Peterman loves to target this guy. He showed it in the preseason. So I think Zay Jones is set for like a 15-point week. He's their rookie. He's going to want to showcase him, and it's a rookie-to-rookie connection, so I see him as a good start this week. Going on to Buck. Who's your
Yeah, for my next guy, I've got Jia Jie versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, yes, they do have Gerald McCoy. They've got Robert Ayers. But, Jia Jie, to me, with a decent offensive line that the Dolphins have, this guy is destined for a big week one. Coming off a bad loss last year, the Pittsburgh Steelers. This guy has been training hard all offseason to get back out there on the field and just play hard. And the Tampa Buccaneers just got a decent defensive line. But Jay Jai is the guy who can burst out for 200 yards in any game, really. I'm not predicting 200 yards here, but I'm predicting a big fantasy game. I love the matchup versus Tampa Buccaneers. Once he gets past that defensive line, there's going to be no one to stop him. So big yardage for this guy.
James?
I have Randall Cobb, and it's a tough matchup against Seattle. But the biggest thing for me is Cobb will be a slot wide receiver, which means he'll either be like on a linebacker or like the Seattle Seahawks third string corner, which would be like KJ Wright or Shaquille Griffin. I think he could definitely expose that matchup, and I definitely see him with like 60 yards and a touchdown, so like a solid 12 points. So.
All right, my next one is in the Texans-Jags matchup. I have Lamar Miller. I think against a defense that has the talent there, but they need to show it first. I think Lamar Miller could have actually a really good week. I'm going to say over 100 yards and probably a TD or two.
Okay.
So we'll go into Buck next for his last start.
Yeah, for this one, I got Jimmy Graham up against the Green Bay Packers. I'm sorry. But the Green Bay Packers defense, the secondary is very shaky, and they've never been good against tight ends. So Jimmy Graham, who's a very good tight end, he's not been the same since the Saints, but Russell Wilson still targets him a lot, and with them just trading Jermaine Kearse, that's another weapon, another target off that team, meaning more targets and more passes to Jimmy Graham. I see him getting open a lot in this Green Bay game. I think he's got the perfect matchup. It is an away game, but Jimmy Graham, that's not going to stop him.
All right, James.
This one might seem obvious to some people, but it's Chris Hogan. Obviously, Julian Edelman went down, but that's not the biggest news for me. The biggest news for me is that the Chiefs' second corner, Steve Nelson, was put on the IR before the game. So now you're going to have a third string corner against Chris Hogan. I see a huge game, maybe close to somewhere to 20 points. So.
All right. My last start is Dante Moncrief. Now, this is a little shaky because Andrew Luck probably won't play week one, but he's a touchdown machine. And I think Jacoby Brissett can get him the ball enough where he can get those probably about 50 yards and then a touchdown in the end zone. Probably good for about 13 points this week, but I like his matchup against the Rams, who have a shaky cornerback row, I would say. So I like that. But moving on from there, we're going to go to sits. People you do not want to play this week, either due to matchups or just they're a shaky player.
Yeah.
But we'll go to Buck first.
Yeah, I've got Blake Bortles at Houston. First of all, it's an away game. Second of all, it's against the Houston's defense. Third of all, Blake Bortles has not looked good in preseason. 3 big reasons why to sit Blake Bortles in this game. I really hope you're not sitting him if he's on your team. Either just put him on your bench. I wouldn't cut him, but put him on your bench. Again, those are 3 big reasons why he's not going to have a big game against Houston Texans. He could have 2 picks in this game. I could see it potentially with no touchdowns. Bad matchup, and it's a week 1 game for Blake Bortles, who doesn't have any momentum going in this game.
You go watch our last video that we posted, our week 1 projections. I projected Blake Bortles to throw 3 picks in that game. We'll go on to James next.
Yeah, I have Matt Stafford against Arizona, and sometimes people draft Matt Stafford to be their number 1 guy, but I don't think this is a good week to start him. The Arizona defense kind of reminds me of another team in the NFC West that he played last year in the playoffs, the Seattle Seahawks. I think he'll struggle against a top 10 defense, and I think he's going to get less than 15 points, so not a good start.
I'm going to go on from there. I have Golden Tate as one of my sit-ems. He's going to be lined up against Patrick Peterson, and that is not a good matchup for really any wide receiver. Even top-tier guys get shut down by this man. So Golden Tate, who I don't believe is a top-tier wide receiver, I believe is probably due for maybe 20, 30 yards this game. 3 points. You want to leave him on your bench during this matchup. We'll go on to Buck next for his next sit.
Yeah, I have Phillip Rivers at Denver now. In our week 1 predictions, I had Denver winning this game, but the Chargers could win this game as well. But no matter what, I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair here. And Phillip Rivers at Denver, again, he's got many weapons, but Denver, they've got a very good defense now. There's injuries here or there, but Phillip Rivers could have an interception or 2. Again, he can still have a good game, but really, realistically, I think Denver's defense will overcome him in this game. Even if that doesn't happen, it'll still be a low-scoring game. I don't see him, even if he doesn't have an interception in this game, I don't see him having a lot of touchdowns or yards. And a lot of those touchdowns could go to the run game with Melvin Gordon as well. So I don't see this as a good match of Philip Rivers. I would sit him this week.
Yeah, really any quarterback versus Denver, you kind of have to take a step back.
Yep.
Unless it's like a Rodgers or Brady.
Well,
It's really,
even then, though, like,
yeah, it's really hard to start a quarterback against Denver's amazing
And with some of
defense.
their pass rush, or run stoppers too, like Shane Ray, you might see them, because he's injured, you might see him go to the run game more with Melvin Gordon as well.
So we'll go on to James Neck. Who's your next?
all right, this is like a group as a whole. I have the Saints running backs against Minnesota. Yes, there's that revenge game factor with Adrian Peterson, but first of all, it's a running back by committee, so some weeks Alvin Kamara might get most of the points. Some weeks Mark Ingram, some weeks Peterson, and in some weeks even Travis Cadet that probably nobody would ever think about owning. They also have a very good defense with guys like Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, Everson, Griffin, Linval Joseph. The list goes on. Not a good start for me.
All right, and mine is Kenny Britt. He's going to be covered by Joe Hayden, who's going to want to show his old team, that they should not have let him go. So to me, I don't see Kenny Britt doing much against Joe Hayden. He's a top tier cornerback when healthy. So to me, Kenny Britt's probably about 2 points, maybe 3 points at the most. We'll go on to Buck next for his next sit.
I got Frank Gore at the Los Angeles Rams, who they have Robert Quinn, Aaron Donald, some other guys like Michael Brockers. They've got a very good defensive line, and with Frank Gore getting up there in age and a division rival, because the Rams always play good. No, it's not a division rival. Sorry, I'm getting confused here. But the Rams always seem to play good in these week openers. Frank Gore getting older. Yes, he can get a touchdown, maybe, but I don't predict that at all. I see this as a bad matchup. I think the Rams' defensive line will overcome him. Sorry for saying it's a division rival. It is not, but still, Frank Gore, bad matchup this week.
James.
I have a player here that when you draft him, you don't expect to sit him at all, and it's Travis Kelce against the Pats. The biggest thing for me is the Pats always try to shut down their opponent's top option. I mean, especially with Spencer Ware going down with an injury, and then Jeremy Maclin leaving in free agency, that Kelsey's really the guy that Alex Smith is going to look to. So whether they put Devin McCourty or David Harris on him, I don't know. I see he'll have a solid game, but not what you really expect. Maybe like 6 or 7 points, but nothing more than that.
All right. Mine is also it's not a player, it's a bunch of players. It's a Chiefs defense. It's something that you draft in the league and you really think you can play them every week. Not against the Pats, though. The Pats, their offense is so high-powered. Don't play the Chiefs defense. I know they have, like, Marcus Peters, and they got a lot of people, and they've even come out and said that they think they have a counter for Tom Brady, and that's just to hit him. I don't see that. I feel like the Patriots are going to put a lot of points up on the board. Don't play the Chiefs defense. We'll go on to Buck next.
I've got Terrelle Pryor, and he's facing Philly in a home game for Washington. Again, your argument could be Philly has a terrible secondary right now. I mean, the safeties are bad, but the corners especially. But I see Terrelle Pryor coming into this game, getting all these high expectations. I see him really flunking this year, not going to play like he did last year, the Cleveland Browns. I know he's not going to have a touchdown this week. And the thing is with Terrelle Pryor, in preseason he had a big drop in that game. I think he could drop a lot of balls in this game. Philly could get into his head and really, play him well. Even with a weak secondary, I think Kirk Cousins will target him a lot, but the balls won't be getting into his hands. And Terrelle Pryor, bad matchup against Philly this week.
All right, James.
I also have another group of players. It's the Seahawks running backs. They play the Packers. First of all, the Packers have a solid run D. They're really the only running back who really gashed them last year was Zeke, but he did that to everybody. But the biggest thing for me is the Seahawks know from experience that the Packers do not have a great pass defense, so they're really going to try to exploit them with the pass game. Honestly, I think Russell Wilson might have more rushing yards than all of the Seattle running backs combined, so none of them are good starts.
Mine is a running back who has a very tough matchup. Amir Abdullah. He's versing the good Cardinals defense. I don't see him doing much against a very good defense in the Cardinals. So again, he's a guy that you draft him as your running back too, but this week you're gonna put him on your bench.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully one of your backups can get more points, but I only see him scoring probably about 4 points. We'll go to Buck for your last one.
Yeah, I've got the Deshaun Kaiser versus Pittsburgh. It is a home game, but just keep in mind, I know a lot of people are picking up this guy and saying, hey, I kind of need a starter this week. Don't start him, okay? Deshaun Kaiser is a rookie coming to this game, and it's against Pittsburgh's defense with Joe Hayden there now. You got guys like Ryan Shazier, Bud Dupree. A lot of those guys on that defensive side who are William Gay. You could go on and on with those kind of players who are good on Pittsburgh's defense. Deshaun Kaiser, I have him kind of struggling in this game. I think, he won't throw a lot of interceptions necessarily, but I think he'll play it more safely in this game, kind of like we saw with Dak Prescott early on in his career last year. I think Deshaun Kaiser won't throw a lot of risky balls, which could lead to not even one touchdown in this game against Pittsburgh. So I would sit him this week.
All right, James, who's your last one?
It's going to be another one like Travis Kelce. Like, you draft him and you don't want to sit him. I have Dak at home versus the Giants. The biggest thing for me last year in those 2 combined games, the offense scored 17 total points. I mean, from a fantasy value, or fantasy aspect, I wouldn't expect Dak to get more than 13 points at a high for me, so it's not really a great start.
And see, I'm on the other side. I say don't start Eli. He has so much hype this year. People are saying, how can he not throw for over 4,000 yards with the wide receivers he has, with the offense he has? Again, to me, that offensive line is shaky. This Cowboys defense got a tad better than they were last year. One of their games last year was a 10-7 game, I think it was.
Yeah.
So it's a game where these two division rivals play each other really hard. These two will probably be competing for the top of the division, so they're going to want this game won. So to me, both of them, I think, are going to be people you sit week 1 just because the matchup is going to be so hard for both. But other than that, do you guys have anything else?
No.
All right. Well, that has been our fantasy episode. Please leave a like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. Leave a comment down below on who you think we should start or sit. Or if you have a comment for us about the video or any videos we want us to do in the future. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.